Hey, Algebra 1. Alright, so you should be on page 285 in your binder. So if you need to pause and get to that spot, go ahead and do that. And I want you to take notes just like you would in class. Alright, we're going to go through these problems on this page. And you can always pause and rewind to see something again. So let's start with number 1 here. Our goal in this section is we're writing equations. Alright, so I want to be able to take some information about a parabola, about a quadratic graph, and we're going to write an equation for it. So let's look at number 1 here. It's a parabola that opens up and has a vertex of -3, 4. And it says let a equal 1. Alright, so what you want to notice is we're told that it has a vertex of -3, 4. So if we're given the vertex, we're going to want to use vertex form. Let's zoom in here. We're going to want to use vertex form. So we start with the actual equation. Y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. So remember, you got to know these forms. Now, it tells us let a equal 1. So I'm going to go ahead and erase a. I'm going to go ahead and erase a. And I'm going to replace it with a 1. And now it tells me the vertex is -3, 4. So I just need to plug in the -3 and the 4 for h and k. Remember, when we started with the equation, we would use the value that was here and here to give us the vertex. So let's plug in. We're going to have y equals, now I don't really have to write the 1, so it's going to be x minus -3 squared, and then plus 4. Okay, this is h, this is k there. This is k. So, well, what's minus a negative? It's really plus positive. And so my final answer here is going to be y equals x plus 3 squared plus 4. Now, that's kind of the easy version. I can make it a little bit harder by not really telling you what a equals like I did in number 1. So look at number 2 here. Number 2 says it's a parabola that has a vertex of 2, -1. So we're thinking vertex form. Vertex form. There's a vertex of 2, -1. There's my h, there's my k. And this time it goes through the point 0, -5. Okay. What you should be thinking is, hey, that's a y-intercept. Okay, because x is 0. We'll see if that helps us out or not. But the parabola, so we start with vertex form. Y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. Okay, I can't replace a with 1 this time because it didn't tell me that. So I have to leave the a. Well, I'll start by plugging in h and k. I have y equals a times x minus 2 squared, and then k would be plus -1. I'm just going to write minus 1 because I like that better. So we kind of have an equation here, except we still have an a involved, and we need to get rid of that. So now here's where I'm going to use this other point, the 0, -5. Okay. For that point, the 0 represents x, and the -5 represents y. So I'm going to plug those into my equations for the x and the y. And what that'll allow me to do is solve for what a equals. So let's try that. We're going to plug in for x. So I'm going to go y is -5 equals a times, and then x was 0, minus 2 squared minus 1. Okay, and now I'm going to take this equation, I'm going to solve it for a. So this is -5 equals a. 0 minus 2 is -2, but -2 squared is 4. So I'm going to go a times 4 minus 1. Now I can just solve for a, because this equation really says -5 equals 4a minus 1. So I'll add 1 to both sides, and I'll get 4a equals negative 4. And divide by 4. Okay. Divide by 4, and I'll get a equals negative 1. So now that I know what a is, I can go back to this equation over here and plug in the a value. So that's going to be negative 1 there. So my final answer is, let's zoom out, y equals negative 1 times x minus 2 squared minus 1. You could, of course, not write the 1 and just write the negative symbol, negative x minus 2 squared minus 1. So, a little bit easier, I tell you what a is. A little bit harder, you have to solve for it. There are couple other types, though. So let's look at number 3. This time, parabola opens down. I think that means a is negative, right? And it has x-intercepts. So maybe we should use intercept form. Okay, so we'll use intercept form there. So it tells me negative 5, 0, and 2, 0 are my intercepts, and it gives me a point that it goes through. So, same as vertex form, we're going to start with the formula. Okay, and if you need to, go back in your notes and look up that formula. What was the intercept form formula? It was y equals a times x minus p times x minus q. And the p and the q are zeros. So in this case, the p and the q are negative 5 and 2. Doesn't matter which one is which. So let's plug those in right away. We go y equals a times x minus negative 5 times x minus 2. Okay. Well, the negative minus negative here, that'll be plus positive. So now, let's see what we have. I've got this equation here, but I still have a involved. So just like we did in number 2, I'm going to substitute for y and x using that other point that they told me about. Okay. That negative 3 represents an x value and 20 represents a y value, so I can plug those in. So let's do this. We're going to go up here, and I'm going to plug in. So for y, I write 20 equals a, because I don't know that yet, times x, or whoops, not x. What am I going to replace x with? Negative 3, the x value there, plus 5. And then replace the other x with also negative 3. Minus 2. And then let's solve it. So this is 20 equals a times 2 times negative 5. That's 20 equals negative 10a. And if I divide by negative 10, I get that a equals negative 2. And just like last time, oops, running out of room over there, I'm going to take my newfound a value and plug it in over here. So we'll get y equals, and then it's a, but that's negative 2, times x plus 5, times, let's make that neater, x plus 5 times x minus 2. And there's our equation. Alright, and we've got one more. Or no, two more. So number 4, parabola that has zeros at 3 and 9 and has a y-intercept of 0, 27. Okay, it's the same problem as number 3. Okay, so what I'm going to do is pause, or have you pause the video. I want you to try it, and then the answer is going to pop up here in a second. You can check, see how you did. Alright, how'd you do? So here's your answer down here for number 4, is y equals x minus 3 times x minus 9. Go through the same process, and when you solve for a, by plugging in 0 for x and 27 for y, 0 for x and 27 for y, we get that a's got to equal 1. Okay. Let's look at number 5. Number 5 is kind of nice. It's a graph, and it actually gives us a bunch of information. Right? So when you look at this graph, you should see a lot of things here. We should see a vertex. We should see an x-intercept and another x-intercept, and we see a y-intercept. So you could kind of use either form. You could use vertex form, or you could use intercept form. All right. So I'm going to let you pick. Remember, either one you're going to need a second point for. Okay? Just like we had in number 4, number 3, and number 2, right? We have the key information, the vertex or the intercepts, but we also have an extra point which helps us solve for A. So think about using either the vertex and an extra point, or both of the x-intercepts and an extra point. So pause the video, try it out, and check your answer in a second. Okay, check it out. We got a couple answers here. If you chose to use vertex form, then your answer is y equals x minus 1 squared minus 4. And if you chose to use intercept form, your answer is y equals x plus 1 times x minus 3. Now, how could it have two equations? Well, they're really the same equation, they're just written in different ways. Okay, for vertex form I used 0, negative 3, that's my y-intercept, as my extra point. And I used the same 0, negative 3, the y-intercept, when I did intercept form. So, try out your homework, use each other for help, and you can email me if you have any questions.